Here's a couple players we know will be protected in the expansion draft, where the Toronto Tempo and the Portland Fire come into the league. Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. As you can see, the message from Caitlin to AB for her birthday there. But the important part of that message is excited to be back out there with you, as you see, because Caitlin Clark's going to be back on a basketball court and teaming up with Aaliyah Boston as part of Team USA. Kind of exciting to see how that training camp unfolds. But, there's no mystery around those two being the core of the Indiana Fever, both now and going forward. And it's actually interesting because they're one of the few players that aren't free agents this year. Now, with the CBA up in the air, it's hard to know exactly what's going to happen. And there are no hard, steadfast rules for the expansion draft. But according to a new preview from ESPN, Kevin Pelton wrote this on ESPN. I guess the rumblings are, the expectations are that each team will be able to protect 5 players. And this is who they project that the Indiana Fever will protect in the expansion draft. As you can see here, Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark, Lexi Hull, Kelsey Mitchell, Michaela Timpson. And then the unprotected, all of those make sense. The one that's going to ruffle feathers or raise eyebrows is Sophie Cunningham. And look, if it were 6 players like it was last time around, I think it's a duh who the 6 are. The question here kind of comes down to Timpson versus Cunningham. Cunningham being a free agent, which complicates things a little bit. Timpson being on her rookie deal, which is obviously advantageous for the Indiana Fever. It's hard for me to know exactly how this will unfold without knowing all the intricacies and the rules, especially because so many players are free agents. But it appears that each team is going to be able to take an unrestricted free agent to designate with the core. So basically one player that they could nab for each team and say, like, we're keeping you. Does Sophie Cunningham fall into that category for anyone? I would say probably not, right? Unless they're thinking that, her star power can help them launch and get things going. So that would be the risk that the Fever would take in not protecting Sophie Cunningham. But from a logical standpoint, that list makes sense. That's not a list I look at and scoff at and say, it's blasphemous or anything like that. And Sophie has already expressed a little bit of uncertainty whether she'll be back with the Fever or not. If I had to bet on it, she'll be back one way or the other. It seems they want her back. I would assume she wants to be back. I think through all the uncertainty, they can probably work it out. But this is, it's uncertain times for a number of reasons, like so many free agents who can just leave on their own accord and an expansion draft like that. And those decisions are not easy to make, right? Like, I don't think you can sit here and say, Timpson or Sophie Cunningham with complete confidence one way or the other. I think, if I'm talking about giving the team the best chance to win next season, Sophie Cunningham. If you're talking about bang for your buck and development going forward, perhaps Timpson. And that is the way you look at it. And I think that's probably the logic made there in the call. Here's the rest of the article showing who they project all of the teams basically to protect. The Atlanta Dream, you see it right there. And it's going to be a wild offseason. The Chicago Sky, who are just in a rough position as a franchise, given the Minnesota Lynx draft pick status from that trade. Then you got the Connecticut Sun, who don't have too much of a roster to work with right now, kind of in a rebuild. Obviously, the Dallas Wings there. And 5 is still a decent amount of players to protect. The Valkyries, they just had their own expansion draft, so like that Temi Fick-Benley decision still stings some fans of the Fever. Here is the Fever again. Here's the blurb. With 7 players heading to unrestricted free agency and only Mitchell as a viable core candidate, the Fever's roster is in good shape for the expansion draft. They can protect all 3 players on rookie contracts, plus Mitchell and restricted free agent Hull. Unless an expansion team sees Cunningham as a core candidate, that would lead them choosing between a pair of unprotected Aussies, Bibby and Wallace. So, yeah, again, that's what I'm saying. That one of those teams would have to say, we want Sophie Cunningham as kind of the face of our franchise and somebody we build around. And while she does have a degree of fame and star power now, I don't know from a basketball standpoint if that's a decision that's going to be made. So it would be a calculated risk to leave her unprotected in order to keep Timpson protected. You see the aces there, the champs, the Sparks. That's interesting. They don't have them protecting Azare Stevens, who I would love to see on the Indiana Fever, the Minnesota Lynx, and so on and so forth down the line. You got the New York Liberty there. Miesemann, not protected here today and gone tomorrow, could be the case for her. She barely was with the Liberty, the Phoenix Mercury, Seattle Storm, Washington Mystics, very young core for that team, obviously. And that is the list as it is currently constructed. But it could be once they get a CBA done, super exciting, right? Like it's been a while. It's been a minute since the season ended, and it's been, kind of all quiet on the, Western Front. But you got Team USA coming up, which I started this video with, which should be exciting. Finally, Caitlin Clark back on the basketball court. Hopefully there's some access, some video, some clips, and some interviews or whatever the case may be, some degree of coverage so we can see what's going on there. That would be fun to follow. And then you would have the expansion draft, the wildest free agency anybody has ever seen, unrivaled, the WNBA draft itself, and before you know it, the WNBA season. I mean, it's such a long offseason, but it could actually be a very quick offseason if they can get things signed, sealed, and delivered, which I do believe will happen. I believe that will happen in January. I feel like there's been a bit of a thaw where we're getting plans and proposals and things put out there rather than like slap in the face. Hate us, you blah, 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 blah. Like less of the fighting words and more of the action verbs, I guess is the way I would say it. Like more of the things that, okay, this has to change, but revenue share appears to be on the table and all that. So let's bring on the action. I'm ready to move past the CBA portion of the program, that chapter of this whole ordeal, and to get to something a little bit more concrete and get the focus back onto hoops, of course. And that's a fun thought experiment. Who would you keep, right? And if you're the GM, who do you protect? But the Fever are in a good position as it outlines there because they have Clark and Boston under contract. They're not even free agents, so you forget about that. Again, they can still core Kelsey Mitchell again. They've said she'll be the number one priority. Lexi Hull's a restricted free agent, so good position there. The question really comes down to Timpson and Cunningham, and I think Cunningham will remain the big question of the offseason as far as the Fever core and who is kept together, because though I do believe she'll be back, there is the highest chance amongst those key players that she's gone as well. So we'll see how it unfolds.